Once again, the eyes of the motor racing world turned to the glittering streets of Monte Carlo. The harbour, the casino, the narrow tunnel, all set the stage for a contest where fortunes can change in an instant. This is the second race of the season, the first on European soil. And as tradition demands, an extraordinary number of drivers arrived in the Principality, all eager for a chance at glory. Yet in the end, only the 16 fastest qualifiers would be granted the honour of taking the start. But this is no ordinary Grand Prix. Here, the changes, the improvements, and the surprises of a transforming sport are laid bare. All predictability is gone. Every expectation carries as much disappointment as it does surprise. New faces step forward hungry for recognition. Veterans fight to defend their honour, and the championship itself begins to take on a new and uncertain shape. Dear viewers, fasten your seatbelts. This is the 1958 Monaco Grand Prix, a race that has so much to offer, and one we are thrilled to share with you. And honestly, it's difficult to decide where to begin. But let us start with the factory teams. Scuderia Ferrari arrives in Monaco, with expectations set as high as the Riviera Hills. After finishing second and third in Argentina, the team from Maranello looks determined to go one better here in Monte Carlo. Their weapon is the brand new Ferrari 246 Dino. Sleek, agile, and already competitive right from the start of the season. The Dino represents the latest step in Ferrari's relentless pursuit of perfection. Every line, every detail, is designed to conquer the twisting streets of Monaco, and the Tifosi believe this may be the machine to do it. But as always, Ferrari's greatest strength lies not only in its cars, but in its drivers. Peter Collins, Mike Hawthorn, Luigi Musso, and now joined by the promising Wolfgang von Trips. Together, they form perhaps the most formidable squad Ferrari has ever assembled. The setting could not be more dramatic. Monaco, Ferrari, and a lineup of superstars in scarlet red. The expectations for Maranello were not just high, they were stratospheric. From Maranello, we turn to Vanwall, the pride of British engineering. For the green cars of Acton, Monaco marked their first race of the season. Argentina had been missed. The difficulties of transporting a team across the Atlantic and the Avgas fuel transition had proved too great a burden. Yet if Vanwall was absent in South America, their time was not wasted. The engineers used those extra months in the garage to refine and reinvent their machines. The updated engines received new pistons, the exhaust system was completely redesigned, and lightweight magnesium alloy wheels were fitted, shaving precious weight from the cars. But no matter the machinery, it is the drivers who bring it to life, and Vanwall's lineup was nothing short of formidable. Stirling Moss, the greatest British hope, returned to his original team. Though he led the championship after victory in Argentina, it was a triumph achieved in a Cooper. Now, back in the green Vanwall, all eyes were on him. Alongside Moss stood Tony Brooks, the racing dentist, and completing the trio, Stuart Lewis Evans, young and ambitious, eager to prove his worth among the giants. For the unforgiving streets of Monte Carlo, Vanwall equipped their cars with wider nose cowlings, reinforced with bumper bars, intended to lessen the consequences of the inevitable collisions that came with racing in the Principality. For the British team, Monaco was not only the start of their season, it was a test of their progress and a chance to prove that the work in the shadows had been worth the wait. Next, we turn to BRM, a team arriving in Monaco under a cloud of modest expectations. Alfred Owen's squad, plagued by misfortune and setbacks over the past two seasons, had struggled to make a mark on the championship. Yet, despite their troubles, the team presented updated BRM P25 cars, machines refined and improved, if still battling the ghosts of past difficulties. Behind the wheel, experience guided their efforts. Jean Behra, a Frenchman of undeniable speed. Harry Schell, the American with nerves of steel. For BRM, Monaco was not expected to yield glory. Yet in a race defined by twists, narrow streets and surprises, even the underdog could make history. On the other hand, Cooper arrived in Monaco riding a wave of optimism. Last year, the team had surprised the racing world, as an underpowered car, expertly driven by Jack Brabham, fought for a podium at Monaco, only to be denied glory when fuel ran out in the closing laps. Argentina offered further reason for confidence, though victory came not in a factory Cooper, but under the banner of Rob Walker's private team. A win is a win, and it proved that Cooper's design, determination, and ingenuity were finally paying dividends. For the Monaco Grand Prix, the lineup remained unchanged from the previous year. Behind the wheel, the ever-talented Jack Brabham led the charge, accompanied by the experienced and steady Roy Salvadori. And then there's Rob Walker's team, arriving in Monaco not as a works entry, but as a proud privateer. Their choice of machinery was unsurprising. The reliable and nimble Cooper, the very same car that had delivered victory in Argentina. With Stirling Moss returning to Vanwall, the spotlight now fell on Maurice Trintignant and Ron Flockhart, who formed the backbone of Walker's effort in the Principality. Experienced, determined, and eager to prove that privateers could still make their mark, these men embodied the fighting spirit that had always defined Rob Walker's team. And now, let us turn our attention to a brand new team, making their very first appearance in a Formula One event, a team that every hardcore F1 fan will always have a soft spot for, Team Lotus. Colin Chapman, formerly the chief engineer at Vanwall, brought with him a wealth of groundbreaking ideas and the mind of a genuine mastermind. He had tasted success helping others, but Chapman had a dream, to create his own team and his own car. Here in Monaco, he took the crucial first step, entering the world of Formula One under his own banner. The car, the Lotus 12, a machine built to embody Chapman's principles, lightness, efficiency, and ingenuity. To fully exploit the Coventry Climax engine, it was designed with low weight and minimal drag, relying on a space frame construction. The driver sat lower than in any previous car, with a clever reduction in the height of the transmission tunnel, thanks to a conceptually brilliant 5-speed sequential shift transaxle mounted at the rear. The Lotus 12 also marked the debut of the now iconic wobbly web wheels, cast in magnesium alloy, crimped cylinders of metal, light yet strong, designed to minimize material while maximizing resilience, a hallmark of Chapman's obsession with engineering for lightness. Originally, the more advanced Lotus 16 was intended for Monaco, but it was not yet ready. So the rookie Lotus team arrived in Monte Carlo, first season, first Monaco Grand Prix, and 2 absolute rookie drivers. Behind the wheel, Cliff Allison, who began his career in a Formula 3 Cooper 500 in 1953 before catching Chapman's eye, would take on the challenge. Alongside him, Graham Hill, the man who would one day earn the nickname Mr. Monaco, made his F1 debut, and what a debut it was, on the very streets that would become his kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, Lotus has arrived. And speaking of legendary names, Monaco marked the first appearance of Bernie Ecclestone in Formula One, though few would have predicted the empire he would one day build. Bernie's first team wasn't Brabham, as many might assume. It was the Connaught team, which he had purchased just the year before. Yet the cars he entered offered little in the way of magic. 2 Connaught Type B machines, first introduced in 1955. Though one of these cars had tasted victory at the 1955 Syracuse Grand Prix, that triumph was already beginning to fade into memory. Behind the wheel, Ecclestone enlisted American rookie Bruce Kessler, alongside Paul Emery, a designer driver who had built a series of front-wheel drive 500cc Formula 3 cars under the Emerson name. Of course, Monaco 1958 also welcomed a number of privateers, bringing diversity, courage, and character to the grid. Among them, perhaps the most memorable, was Maria Teresa de Filippis, the very first woman to compete in the daring, chaotic world of Formula One. Fearless and passionate, she carried herself with poise in a sport dominated entirely by men. And she was not alone in her preparation. Juan Manuel Fangio, the 5-time world champion, took her under his wing during the season, offering advice drawn from years of unparalleled experience. In a 2006 interview, De Filippis recalled Fangio's counsel: "You go too fast, you take too many risks." Words of caution from a master, yet never a deterrent to her indomitable spirit. But wait, what about Juan Manuel Fangio? The absolute legend of the sport was missing from Monaco, practicing for the upcoming Indy 500. This meant that, for a rare moment in Formula One, there was no reigning world champion on the grid. Yet Monaco always has its surprises. Enter Louis Chiron, the hero of Bugatti, making his final attempt in racing. While the entire grid was born in the 20th century, Chiron stood apart, the only driver born in the 19th century, a living link to the earliest days of Grand Prix racing. A grid like this had never been seen before. New teams and legends, privateers and pioneers, rookies and veterans. This convergence of talent, experience, and ambition marked Monaco 1958 as one of the greatest spectacles of the decade, perhaps the very peak of the 1950s in Formula One.
Mesdames et messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monte Carlo, welcome to the Jewel of the Riviera, and to the stage of the 1958 Monaco Grand Prix. Here on these narrow, twisting streets, the very cream of motor racing has gathered. The finest teams, the bravest drivers, the most beautiful machines, all assembled to test themselves against the most unforgiving circuit in the world. Not less than 30 of the world's finest drivers have descended upon these narrow streets, all chasing the same dream. A place on the starting grid of the Monaco Grand Prix. But the rules are merciless. The Automobile Club de Monaco allows only 16 machines to take the start. 14 men, after days of practice and qualifying, must now resign themselves to watching from the sidelines. Their ambitions ended before the race even begins. And today, history is made. A new force enters the world of Grand Prix racing, Team Lotus. College captain's vision, his dream brought to life, begins right here in Monaco.
Practice for the Monaco Grand Prix opened under blazing sunshine, the narrow streets alive with the sound of engines. Veterans eased into their rhythm, while rookies struggled with the endless corners, the tunnel, and the polished surface. And then came the shock. Jean Behra, in the new BRM P25, hurled his car down to 1 minute 40.8 seconds. Faster than Fangio's race record, faster than Ferrari, faster even than the mighty Vanwalls. For a moment, Monaco belonged to BRM. Ferrari, usually the titans of the sport, were clearly on the back foot. Their cars looked nervous on the streets of Monaco. Stiff suspensions and awkward gearing robbed them of their usual elegance. Musso, Collins, Hawthorn, and young Von Trips wrestled the Scarlet machines. But the stopwatch told the truth. Ferrari simply didn't have the pace to match the front-runners. Across the paddock, Vanwall began their season cautiously, but the pressure was already building. Stirling Moss, their star, grew visibly frustrated. His car felt wrong. The steering, the suspension, the very heartbeat of the machine seemed out of sync. So disillusioned was Moss that he climbed out, refusing to waste more effort on a car that wasn't worthy. But while Moss simmered in the pits, his teammate Tony Brooks seized the stage. On Friday morning, the circuit cooled under gathering clouds, and Brooks attacked. Lap after lap, he pressed harder, dancing the green Vanwall millimeters from the barriers. The tension grew with every pass across the line until finally, the timing boards confirmed it. 1 minute 39.8 seconds, the fastest lap Monaco had ever seen. Faster than Behra's brilliant BRM, faster than Ferrari, faster than anyone in history. In that instant, Brooks didn't just take provisional pole, he redefined the limits of Monaco. Behind the giants, the Coopers of Brabham and Salvadori were flying, joined by Trintignant in Rob Walker's private entry, proof that the underdogs were no longer to be underestimated. Meanwhile, Lotus endured a baptism of fire. Allison sidelined with mechanical trouble, Hill damaging his car against a curb. Hard lessons for rookies in the toughest arena of all. But many drivers couldn't squeeze into the top 16. Maria Teresa de Filippis gave it everything, but her best lap was 11 seconds shy of pole. Still, she outpaced 6 others, including Testut, Piotti, and Gould, a proud achievement. The real shock came from the bottom. Bernie Ecclestone, Connaught's owner, attempted a run. His lap? More than 63 seconds slower than Brooks. He insisted it wasn't serious, but the embarrassment meant he never tried again.
And now, after a difficult, dramatic and thrilling fight against the clock, here is how the grid has been decided. On pole position, it is Britain's own Tony Brooks, mastering his Vanwall around these tight corners with a blistering time of 1 minute 39.8 seconds, the only man under 140 this weekend. Alongside him in second place, the pride of France, Jack Brabham in the BRM, just a single second adrift. In third, what a surprise, the young Australian, Jack Brabham, bringing every ounce of speed from his little Cooper, just 1.2 seconds away from pole. And next to him, in fourth, another Cooper, this one in the hands of Roy Salvadori, equally matched on time, the Coopers truly showing their strength here in Monaco. Maurice Trintignant, the Monaco winner of 1955, now driving Rob Walker's Cooper in fifth place, followed by Mike Hawthorn in the Scarlet Ferrari, sixth on the grid. Behind them, two more British stars. In seventh, Stuart Lewis Evans in the Vanwall, and in eighth, none other than Stirling Moss, unusually far back for the Englishman, struggling with his Vanwall, but still very much in contention. Completing the top 10, the rest of the Ferrari Armada. In ninth, stylish and daring Peter Collins, and in 10th, Italy's own Luigi Musso, determined to carry the flag for the Scuderia. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment has come. We are just seconds away from the start of what promises to be a grueling contest. 100 laps around these unforgiving streets of Monte Carlo. That's 314.5 kilometers, or 195.4 miles. Every single meter demanding absolute perfection, testing not only the drivers, but also the very limits of their machines. The engines are rumbling. The tension is unbearable. The world is watching. Are you ready, Monaco? Then let the Riviera hear you. Scream, cheer and roar for the heroes of today, because the 1958 Monaco Grand Prix is on the way.
Tony Brooks rockets off the line, a perfect start that launches him like a missile into the first corner. Right behind him, John Behra and Jack Brabham follow in hot pursuit, the pack surging forward in a blur of colour, noise and pure adrenaline. As always, Stirling Moss is a man in motion, lightning fast off the line, slicing through the field with surgical precision, already up to fourth place before the first lap is complete. Right behind Brabham, the Cooper driver defended fiercely, but Moss was relentless. With a daring, perfectly timed move, he slipped past and secured third position. It was a reminder of just how small and agile these 1950s machines truly were, nimble enough to dance through Monaco's narrow streets in a way the monstrous machines of later decades could only dream of. By lap 5, Hawthorn in the Ferrari was keeping steady pressure on Brabham. His persistence paid off, and he slipped past to take fourth place, moving Brabham down a spot. The Ferrari settled into position, showing that careful driving and timing could make all the difference on Monaco's tight streets. Proven this, Hawthorn was on fire today. He closed in on Moss, and in the blink of an eye, he was through, breaking into the top 3. By now, the field had already spread out. The top 3 were gone, Behra leading, Brooks in second, and the madman Hawthorn blazing in third. Jack Brabham was struggling, unable to find the pace he needed. On lap 15, he was forced to let Trintignant through. Musso slipped by as well, dropping the Australian back to 7th place. With a fifth of the race complete, Brooks's Vanwall began to fade. In a single lap, both Hawthorn and Moss swept past him with ease, pushing Brooks down to 4th place. It was a bad omen for the Vanwalls, their early promise now under question, but at least there was one glimmer of hope. Moss was still at full power, charging forward with the speed and confidence that kept the team's hopes alive. Back to Brabham, his steady drop through the field was no mystery anymore. A failed anti-roll bar left him struggling, forced to nurse the Cooper cautiously around the circuit. First, Collins pounced, slipping past with ease. And right behind him, Von Trips sensed the same opportunity and struck as well, pushing the Australian further back to 9th place. Right after, the Aussie had no choice. Brabham dived into the pits, hoping to get the anti-roll bar fixed. But the stop dragged on far too long, even by 1950 standards, and when he finally rejoined, he had fallen all the way to dead last. In the middle of the field, Joe Bonnier and Cliff Allison were locked in a long, spirited duel. The young Swede fought fiercely to keep the Lotus at bay, defending his Maserati with everything he had. But by lap 23, Allison finally found the gap. With a confident move, he slipped through and claimed 11th place. And that in itself was remarkable. Even the fact that the Lotuses were still running was a small miracle. This was their first ever Grand Prix, and here was the Lotus 12, not just surviving but overtaking the trusty warhorse, the Maserati 250F.
And there is Graham Hill, born in Hampstead, London, 29 years old, a young man stepping onto the world stage for the very first time. Behind the wheel of a Lotus, in their very first Grand Prix, Hill represents both a fresh talent and a bold new chapter in the sport. Remember this face. Remember this name.
After a few cautious laps of nursing his car, Tony Brooks's Vanwall gave up the fight. The engine suddenly cut out, leaving him no choice but to pull over and park at the side of the road. When Brooks popped the bonnet, the problem revealed itself. Just one spark plug had come loose from the cylinder head. Such a small failure, yet it was enough to end his race. Another Vanwall was gone. And now, with two cars out, things were starting to look very serious for the team. Meanwhile at the front, Jean Behra was pushing as hard as ever. So many times he had come close to that elusive maiden Grand Prix victory, perhaps this was finally his chance. But fate had other plans. Just like a certain Chris Amon would be years later, Behra's luck seemed cursed. The BRM's brakes began to fade badly, forcing him to tiptoe through the corners. And all the while, the madman Hawthorn loomed larger and larger in his mirrors. By lap 29, it was hopeless. Behra pulled into the pits, only to discover his race was over. Another cruel twist in his long chase for victory. Just a few laps later, another BRM ran into trouble. Harry Schell began losing power and had no choice but to pit immediately. The Monaco Grand Prix was proving brutally unforgiving. Mechanical failures were striking everywhere, turning what should have been a battle of skill into a relentless test of survival. Back at the front, Moss was steadily closing the gap to Hawthorn, grinding down the distance lap by lap. Soon, he caught the Ferrari, and under the relentless pressure, Hawthorn had no choice but to yield, letting the Vanwall slip through. But Moss couldn't shake him off. Hawthorn shadowed every move, refusing to give an inch. Then disaster struck. After his furious charge, Moss's Vanwall developed a misfire. The last remaining Vanwall was in trouble. Forced to pit, Moss hoped for a quick fix, but the mechanics discovered a serious valve mechanism failure. That was it. Moss's race was over, and with it, Tony van der Velde's team had no cars left running in the Monaco Grand Prix.
And there comes Mike Hawthorn, hailing from Farnham in Surrey, just 29 years old, the fearless English lion. Known for his fiery spirit and dazzling speed in the Scarlet Ferrari, Hawthorn never backs down from a fight. With a smile on track and pure determination on it, he's one of the most dangerous men to face in a Grand Prix.
With Moss out, Hawthorn went flat out, chasing the extra point for the fastest lap. On lap 45, he nailed it, a blistering 1 minute 40 seconds .6, the quickest of the race so far. But this was the 50s, and stressing an engine came with consequences, even in a Ferrari. Just 3 laps later, the fuel pump mount on Hawthorn's car broke, instantly sapping his speed. He had no choice but to pit and retire, ending his challenge. Yet Ferrari's strength lay in numbers. Even with Hawthorn gone, 3 of their cars were still in the race, keeping the team firmly in contention. Trintignant, in the Cooper, now led the race, a completely unexpected turn of events. But don't forget, he had already won the Monaco Grand Prix in 1955, behind the wheel of a Ferrari. The potential is there. He just has to stay focused and concentrate, navigating every corner with precision to hold on to this surprising advantage. Up to lap 70, the order at the front stayed the same, Trintignant's Cooper leading. chased closely by 3 Ferraris. Meanwhile, trouble struck further back. The Lotus of Graham Hill, who had climbed to 6th place thanks to rivals' misfortunes, dropped out with a broken drive shaft. Still, Cliff Allison remained in the race, keeping the Lotus team's hopes alive. On their very first Grand Prix, there was still a chance to snatch a point, a small but significant victory in its own right. We can understand the safety measures by the Automobile Club of Monaco, allowing only 16 cars to start. But at this point, it hardly mattered. Only 8 cars remained on track. Then, on lap 72, Joe Bonnier, running in 5th, made a mistake and smashed his Maserati to pieces, losing his chance to score his first points. And just like that, the field was reduced to 7 cars. After a chaotic, nail-biting and utterly unpredictable battle, Maurice Trintignant crossed the finish line in triumph, claiming his second Monaco victory and delivering Rob Walker's team their second consecutive win of the season, a stunning achievement for the privateer squad that had defied all expectations. In second place, Luigi Musso surged to the line, adding 6 crucial points to his tally and seizing the lead in the championship. Patient, calculated, and relentless, the Italian driver turned the twists and turns of Monte Carlo to his advantage. Peter Collins brought the Scuderia Ferrari home in 3rd, completing a double podium for the team. Though Collins never possessed the raw pace to chase the lead today, his disciplined drive ensured that Ferrari once again matched their dominant showing in Argentina, proof that the Maranello machines were a force to be reckoned with. Jack Brabham, meanwhile, salvaged a hard-fought 4th place after a costly pit stop had derailed his race. It wasn't enough to challenge for glory, but it marked the first points of his Formula One career, a milestone that hinted at the greatness yet to come. Finally, Harry Schell took 5th, claiming the last points on offer. Despite losing time with a spark plug issue, the American driver brought BRM home, securing their first successful finish since 1951, a rare and hard-won points for the struggling team. Looking at the championship standings after the second race of the season, Luigi Musso takes the lead with 12 points. Remarkably, he has yet to claim a victory, but his consistent and impressive performances are already making a statement. Behind him, Stirling Moss and Maurice Trintignant sit in 2nd and 3rd, both having already claimed wins in the opening rounds, a testament to their pace and skill. Mike Hawthorn holds 4th place with 5 points, while Peter Collins rounds out the top 5 with 4 points. It's still early in the season, and the championship is wide open. With so much talent on the grid, and so many mechanical uncertainties still in play, the standings could change dramatically in the races to come. And in the race for the inaugural Constructors' Championship, Cooper takes an early lead. Remarkably, these points come entirely from the privateer Walker Racing team, but under the rules of the time, Cooper gets the credit, a situation almost unimaginable in today's Formula One. Ferrari sits in 2nd with 12 points. The new 246 Dino is undeniably fast, but the sudden pace of the Coopers has delivered a real shock to the Maranello squad. Meanwhile, Maserati and BRM have little to boast about. Both manufacturers need to find extra speed and reliability if they want to climb the standings and earn more points in the battles ahead. And as for Vanwall, the British outfit remains absent from the leaderboard after missing the season opener and seeing all 3 of their cars retire in Monaco. So, dear viewers, the curtains fall on the 1958 Monaco Grand Prix, a race of sheer unpredictability, heartbreak, and triumph. But the season marches on, and the next challenge awaits at the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort, where a Dutch driver, Karel Godin de Beaufort, will proudly represent his country on home soil. Make sure to subscribe to Grand Prix TV and join us as we witness more drama, speed, and history unfold in the Netherlands.